You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the globe to bring you the latest developments in medical cannabis, adult marijuana, industrial hemp, and spiritual ganja. It's time for the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville. Now, here's your host, Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Friday, January 12th, 2018, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Oh boy, we made it to the weekend once again. So glad to have you here. Thanks for being a supporter of the Marijuana Agenda. We got another abbreviated show for you today. No guest on today's show. We'll get a few more of these interviews lined up coming up in the next few weeks. But also, I wanted to give you a heads up about a couple of weeks from now. The 23rd, 24th, and 25th is the Cannabis Collaborative Conference here in Portland, Oregon. So I will be out at that conference for those 3 days. That's coming up not next week, but the following week, the 23rd, 24th, 25th. That's a Tuesday through Thursday. So we'll have an abbreviated week there. Also next week, next Monday, is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And as you know, I don't work on federal holidays. So there will be no show on Monday. So we got next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then next Monday, Friday. That's kind of a spotty schedule, I understand, but well, you'll survive, I'm sure. There's a lot of marijuana news out there. You'll just have to do some Googling. In the meantime, though, let's get to today's show, because on today's program, we've got some more cannabis headline news to get to you, including an update on Vermont's legalization, medical marijuana in the state of Oklahoma, childhood medical marijuana in Illinois, the poisoning of owls in California is in the news, and a look at what's happening in the state of New Jersey. Then we'll move on to our What About the News segment, where we take a look at what's coming up for 2018 and mock Kevin Sabet with it. That's right. Kevin Sabet, the founder and head of the nation's leading prohibitionist group, Project SAM, the Smart Approaches to Marijuana, or as I call it, Project Samuel, Smart Approaches to Marijuana Use Except Legalization. These are the Goldilocks people that want to keep marijuana just illegal enough that they can hassle you over it and make money from it. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then coming up in the Radical Rant at the end of the program, we'll take a look right here at my home state of Oregon, where we've got some reaction from Billy Williams, the U.S. attorney for the state, and whether or not he will abide by the Cole memo as it used to be or move forward with a marijuana crackdown.
This is your Cannabis Headline News. Brought to you by MarijuanaMoment.net, the complete source for all your marijuana news in one morning newsletter from Marijuana Majority Founder Tom Angel. Subscribe today for free at MarijuanaMoment.net.
This is your Cannabis Headline News for Friday, January 12th, 2018. I'm Russ Belville. Governor Phil Scott intends to sign the marijuana legalization bill, he said Thursday at his first news conference since the final version of the Vermont bill cleared the House and Senate. H. 511 would remove all state penalties in Vermont for adults who possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana and 2 mature or 4 immature plants. The bill does not allow any retail sales of marijuana or generate any new tax revenue. It would take effect on July 1st. Scott vetoed a version of the legalization effort that passed the legislature last spring, saying the bill passed too quickly for him to lay out specific concerns about penalties for selling marijuana to minors, using marijuana while driving, and several other topics. The governor pledged in May to sign a revised bill that addressed his concerns. The bill cleared the final legislative hurdle Wednesday and now will be reviewed by lawyers for technical errors before being sent to the governor. Scott will have 5 days to sign the bill, and he has not yet announced whether he will host a public signing ceremony. According to Oklahomans for Health, a new poll from Sooner Poll found that 62% of Oklahomans support State Question 788, a measure that would legalize medical marijuana in the state. Oklahomans will cast their votes on SQ 788 on June 26th. Oklahomans for Health issued a news release Thursday with the polling information and a statement regarding recent criticism for the wording of SQ 788. Critics have pointed out the lack of medical conditions in the law. Quote, the intent of no medical conditions is that it forces the professional recommendations squarely on the shoulders of the physicians, whereas in other states they are just checking a box, end quote, said Chip Pale, chair of Oklahomans for Health. According to the Sooner poll, 73% of Oklahomans support the physician recommendation section of SQ 788. When it comes to recreational marijuana, those polled were more hesitant. Just 37% answered favorably about legalizing recreational marijuana. The Illinois Attorney General's office has told a federal court it will allow a suburban Chicago school district to administer medical marijuana to an 11-year-old leukemia patient to treat her seizure disorders. The commitment made to Judge John Blakey on Friday came 2 days after the student's parents sued Schaumburg-based District 54 and the state for the girl's right to take medical marijuana at school. Illinois' medical cannabis law prohibits possessing or using marijuana on school grounds or buses. The parents said the policy violates the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. School district officials said they will administer cannabis to the sixth grader until they get further clarification from the Attorney General. An assistant Attorney General told Blakey his office would allow the school to administer the drug until the office can figure out how to address the state law. Rat poison is contaminating threatened northern spotted owls in California forests, and marijuana farms appear to be to blame, according to a study published Thursday. The study, published in the journal Avian Conservation and Ecology, focused on owls in Northern California's Humboldt, Mendocino, and Del Norte counties, part of the so-called Emerald Triangle, where remote farms, many in old-growth forests, produce much of the marijuana grown for the U.S. black market. Researchers from the University of California, Davis, and the California Academy of Sciences tested 10 northern spotted owls found dead in the region. 7 of the owls tested positive for rat poison used by pot farmers to keep rodents away from their irrigation systems and crops. The northern spotted owls are listed as threatened under state and federal Endangered Species Acts. 40% of another species, barred owls, also tested positive for the rat poison. New Jersey Governor-elect Phil Murphy doesn't succeed Chris Christie until next week, but already his fellow Democrats have introduced legislation to achieve one of his campaign promises, legalizing marijuana. Democratic State Senator Nicholas Scutari introduced the measure allowing the recreational use of marijuana by those 21 and older on Thursday, the same day the new session of the Democrat-led legislature convened. Murphy campaigned and won in November on a promise to legalize recreational marijuana. He has said legalization could bring in roughly $300 million in new revenue. New Jersey already has a medical cannabis program. This has been your Cannabis Headline News for Friday, January 12th, 2018. I'm Russ Belville.
You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville. The Marijuana Agenda is a listener-supported independent podcast brought to you by Radical Russ Media, LLC. Subscribe to our VIP feed at mjagenda.com for access to our ad-free podcast segment archive. Make a one-time donation to support the Marijuana Agenda at paypal.me/radicalruss. You're not high. You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
And one of the parts of the American dream is we're going to come down very, very hard on this massive drug problem.
Okay, maybe you're a little high.
Looking for the 420 friendliest way to visit beautiful legal Potland, Oregon?
I'm Lori Duckworth, inviting you to come stay with us at Delta 9 House and Studios.
You get your own private room with queen bed and access to our high-speed Wi-Fi, premium entertainment system, and more.
We'll even cook you breakfast. Look us up on Facebook at Delta 9 House.
That's facebook.com/Delta9House. Delta 9 House is booked through Airbnb.com, City of Portland permit number 17-159855.
People should say no to drug use. It's really, really easy.
Adding more gasoline to the fire.
Lackadaisical. Really tough, really big, really great.
To infect and rot our nation vulnerable.
Dangerous gateway drugs.
We don't need to be legalizing marijuana.
To build and grow a stronger, healthier, and drug-free society.
In the news.
In What the News today, I want to talk a little bit about Kevin Sabet, the Joker to my Batman. As you know, he's the head of Project SAM, the nation's leading anti-legalization lobby. And within his annual report for 2017, he made a lot of hay about how no legalization passed in 2017. No state legalized marijuana in 2017. Now, forget the fact that West Virginia legalized medical cannabis in 2017. West freaking Virginia. But he made a big deal. Nobody legalized marijuana in 2017. What a success Project Sam has had. That no state had legalized marijuana in 2017, an off-year election with no initiatives on the ballot. Now, of course, this did happen. Connecticut and Rhode Island stalled out with their legislatures, and most fatefully is that the governor in Vermont vetoed legalization in 2017 that had been passed by the legislature. And maybe he can claim a little bit of credit for this, in that we've heard some of Sabet's talking points coming out of Governor Phil Scott's mouth, things like, tobacco 2.0 when he is asked about marijuana sales. But I have to bring this up because I can't wait to see what the 2018 annual report for Project Sam is going to look like. Because as we know, as we mentioned in the news, Vermont is just about to legalize marijuana for all adults. Now, it's a grow and give marijuana. It's a grow and give like Washington State. You can grow your own. You can smoke your own. You can share it with friends, but you can't spend any money on it. Wink. That's right. You can't have any pot shops because that would be tobacco 2.0. And I'm fascinated by this because, number one, of course, it's a defeat for Kevin Sabet. But number two, it's interesting how he doesn't support that either. Well, it depends on which state you're in, right? If he's in a state like California or Oregon or any sort of liberal state, he'll say medical marijuana is fine, but recreational is not. But if he's in a state that thinks he can defeat medical, he'll say that it's no good either. But one of the things that's vexing about this is how he doesn't even support the grow and give, because his big talking point is the big tobacco 2.0. Oh my God, we can't have a legal marijuana industry. It'll induce the profit motive into these corporations that will then lie to the children to try to build new addicts, and it'll be like tobacco, and it'll be a terrible thing. Now, of course, this ignores a number of salient points. Number one, Big Tobacco had to lie about its product. It had to lie about its product. Its product sucks. Its product literally kills you, makes your clothes stink, it forces you to go outside every couple of hours. I mean, there's nothing good you can say about a cigarette other than it being a stimulant, for people that are trying to stay awake. Other than its stimulant properties, there's not much good to say about tobacco. Big Tobacco had to lie to its consumers, its adult consumers. Oh, it's healthy. 4 out of 5 doctors smoke Camels, etc. Because their product sucks. It kills people. And Big Tobacco had to induce children into smoking, and no doubt they did. They put the ads close to where they made the cartoon camels and the Budweiser, all these, I was going to say Budweiser frogs, but that's alcohol. Same idea, though. But tobacco had to lie to kids because adults won't start smoking. If you make it to age 21 and you've never smoked a cigarette, chances are you're never going to. You're never going to be a smoker. Why? Because the product sucks. You inhale a cigarette, you hack, you wheeze, you want to puke, it stinks. You get a little head rush, vertigo thing going on, and you go, well, this sucks, and you don't do it anymore. But a kid, teenager, very malleable, very susceptible to peer pressure, very susceptible to the marketing of, hey, you can be rebellious, you can be an adult if you smoke a cigarette. Well, yeah. They went after him because they had to. That's the only place they could get new smokers. I bring this up because the analogy of saying that marijuana is going to be the next big tobacco 2.0 is an inept analogy because marijuana ain't tobacco. The product doesn't suck. The people who try this product like it. It works for them and has very little, and for some of us, no deleterious side effects. So you're not in the same situation when you're trying to get adults to continue using marijuana because they recognize that, hey, it's doing good things for me and I like it, so I'll keep using it. And since marijuana is non-toxic, you don't have the same problem with tobacco losing its adult smokers to lung cancer and having to lie to a bunch of kids to replace them. because adults will take up marijuana. Adults who've never smoked marijuana in their life, and I've seen this numerous times, now that it's legal, will try it and find out, well, what do you know? I really like this stuff. It's doing wonders for me. And third, we don't have to recruit kids to smoke pot. Because we don't, the fastest growing demographic of people that smoke pot in the legal states are over the age of 50. We don't need the kids. We don't want the kids. Hell, the kids don't have as much disposable income. We want the adults buying those ounces. So Sabet's all fixated on this tobacco 2.0. Oh my God, there's going to be a big predatory corporate industry. Well, here comes Vermont with a legalization that has no predatory corporate industry in it, like Washington, D.C. Now, I confronted Kevin on this in 2014 when he was touring Idaho, and I asked him about Washington, D.C.'s. I said, hey, since you're so upset about the commercialization of marijuana, do you support Washington, D.C.'s model, grow and give, where there'll be no commercial model? And he said, no, I don't support that because that's just a ruse because they just want to get that through because they can't get the other thing through because of Congress. But once they have a friendly Congress, then they'll pass tax and regulate, and then they're okay. Yada, yada, yada. Well, what about Vermont? Is that going to be the same excuse? We can't support Vermont's grow and give that doesn't have a commercial industry because maybe someday they will? If that's the case, then you don't support grow and give ever, because that's the case for anybody that ever passes a grow and give. Is someday in the future there might be tax and regulate. So it's just a sham. He just hates potheads and wants to make sure that the force of law can be used to correct our immoral behaviors. But it's going to be fun to see what the excuse will be for losing Vermont this year from Kevin Sabet and Project Sam, as well as losing New Hampshire. Their legislature, their House, just moved forward with a similar grow and give type proposal. It's got a good chance of passing. He's going to lose that. He's going to lose Vermont. He's going to lose New Hampshire, New Jersey. Going to lose New Jersey. The legislature just introduced its bill, and the incoming governor, Phil Murphy, has pledged to sign it. We've got an initiative taking place in Michigan, very likely to make the ballot this time around and very likely to pass this time around. So following up the 2017 report, Kevin Sabet, where the proclamation is, aha, no states passed legalization. What are you going to do when the second straight even numbered election shows 4 states passing legalization? You lost 2 in 2012. You lost 2 in D.C. in 2014. You lost 4 more. You did win. I got to say you won in Arizona, but you lost 4 more in 2016. And by the end of 2018, there might be 12 legal marijuana states in the United States. Shit, whatever you're doing, Kevin, keep doing it because it's really working for us. It's doing blockbuster work for us. And then let's throw medical on the pile here as well, because Project Sam, as opposed to medical marijuana, they compare it to smoking opium. So you lost West Virginia. You're up to 29 states now that have some form of medical cannabis. 29, including West Virginia. And the states in play this year are Missouri, moving forward with a medical marijuana initiative. Oklahoma, which already has it on the ballot, and the poll just showed 60 some odd percent, 63%, I think, that supported it. And you've got Utah. Utah's got an initiative that is likely to make the ballot. And if it does, some 3 out of 4 Utahns are in support of this measure. What demonization could you possibly come up with for medical marijuana that's going to scare anybody anywhere else when the people of West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Utah support it? You've lost on medical. You just completely lost on medical. It's funny to me. And one last thing about that medical. In Oklahoma, this is an interesting development. Oklahoma doesn't have a condition list like we've got in most of the medical states. They're going California style. They're saying conditions for which a doctor believes cannabis can be helpful. And I love the defense of it being, if you have a condition list, you're just setting up for a doctor to check off boxes on a list rather than leaving the responsibility with the doctor's professional view. That's a brilliant defense of that. And if we get medical in Oklahoma with no conditions, wow.
One wife, one God, that I can understand, but one wife that is not civilized.
Speaking of Utah, hey folks, it's 20 after the hour. That means it's 4:20 in Denver, Colorado, and in Boise, Idaho, where I was born. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll have our anti-drug public service announcement, but mainly we'll have the radical rant. We're going to take a look at the U.S. Attorney here in Oregon and whether or not there's going to be a crackdown when we return. If you work in the cannabis industry, consume marijuana, or just support freedom, you need to know about breaking policy news that affects you. Marijuana Moment is the daily newsletter that helps you stay on top of all the latest and most important state, federal, and international cannabis developments. Brought to you by longtime legalization activist Tom Angel, Marijuana Moment puts a concise yet comprehensive overview of cannabis news in your inbox early every weekday morning. Wake up to Marijuana Moment and rest assured you'll be ready for the cannabis news that's driving the day. Subscribe now at marijuanamoment.net.
The Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
Law enforcement is a part of the answer. It's part of creating a climate of hostility to drug use in America.
Whatever you're smoking, it's not marijuana. The Marijuana Agenda free podcast is available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, SoundCloud, and on our Facebook page at MJ Agenda. Free video archives are available at the Radical Russ channel on YouTube. Help keep this media free by making a donation at paypal.me/radicalruss. Now, in the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Marijuana Agenda presents this anti-drug public service announcement.
Get this. The marijuana can mess you up. Right. We've been getting high for what? 15 years? Nothing's ever happened. Did I get into other drugs and start mugging people? Nah. Didn't do anything. In fact, I'd say I'm exactly the same as when I smoked my first joint.
Eddie, did you even look for a job today?
No, Ma.
Marijuana can make nothing happen to you, too.
This has been an actual anti-drug public service announcement. To combat this and other drug war hysteria, listen to the Marijuana Agenda every weekday at 3 p.m. Pacific at live.mjagenda.com or download the free podcast at mjagenda.com.
New beginner guitars and banjos are often constructed much better than ones built before your time. Why struggle? Get a new instrument or fix the old one. The trusted professionals at the Fingerboard Extension will evaluate your instrument for free. Repairs are priced for people who work for a living. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com.
The Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
And let me be clear about marijuana. It is a potentially dangerous gateway drug that frequently leads to the use of harder drugs.
Whatever you're smoking, it's not marijuana.
Hey everybody, it's Russ Belville from the Marijuana Agenda, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
Total war against public enemy number one.
10 federal criminal penalties for 1 ounce of marijuana.
Marijuana is probably the most dangerous drug.
Legalization is just another word for surrender.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
This is not medicine. This is the Cheech and Chong show.
Encourage people to use less drugs.
I am ill. That was the point.
I think it would be a mistake to legalize.
Negative reports coming out of Colorado.
People don't smoke marijuana.
Radical Rant. Well, today in the rant, we want to take a look right here at my state of Oregon and the reaction to the rescinding of the Cole memo by Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Keebler Gump Sling Blade Hobbit Sessions. And you didn't know this was his full name, did you? Anyway, the reaction from our governor has been great. right? Kate Brown has, called for Sessions to respect what the old settings were. Don't mess with the state legal marijuana. Our senators, our representatives, generally, other than Walden, have been good on this issue. But especially my representative, Earl Blumenauer. But the one person whose opinion matters in this issue is U.S. Attorney Billy Williams. Not Billy D. Williams, just Billy Williams. And he's the U.S. Attorney for Oregon. And he said on Friday that last Friday, that he's troubled by the overproduction of marijuana in Oregon and the black market exportation of the crop to other states, though he declined to detail how his office will carry out a new federal directive stripping legal protections for marijuana businesses. All right, so first I have to correct a problem with that paragraph there. The new federal directive did not strip legal protections for marijuana businesses. The old Cole memo provided no legal protections for marijuana businesses. It provided prosecutorial guidelines for U.S. attorneys. And the new federal directive has rescinded those new prosecutorial guidelines and returned them to the old prosecutorial guidelines. Nothing in all of this has changed the legality of marijuana businesses from the federal level. So I thought that was a little misleading, that as if there were legal protections for marijuana businesses. There weren't. There were no legal protections to strip. There were prosecutorial guidelines. So he's not saying, Williams is mum on this for the moment. He said, quote, he doesn't believe in overreacting. Quote, I want to be methodical and thoughtful about what we do here in the District of Oregon, end quote. And the thing that's frustrating about this is he goes on and says, Oregon seed-to-sale regulation of marijuana has done little to reduce the state's notorious role as a black market source, said Williams, who on Friday called it, quote, a huge problem. That's been my concern for months, end quote. So, all right, the first problem with this is there is a market of growers who produce gobs of cannabis, harvest the marijuana therefrom, package it, and sell it out of state. Those people, growers, have existed in Oregon since before I was born. And they had been growing gobs of cannabis and sending tons of marijuana east forever. From my perspective, since it's been happening since before I was born, right? Always happened. Now, while that exists, people growing gobs of marijuana to sell out of state, we've now created a new set of growers, people growing in the licensed recreational industry who are cultivating limited numbers of cannabis plants each for sale, packaging and sale within the state. Now, I'm not saying that licensed growers don't divert some of their marijuana out of state. And I'm not saying that some of those black market growers didn't convert and become licensed growers. What I am saying is it's ridiculous to think that creating the new group of licensed growers was going to stop the out-of-state transfer market from continuing to exist. Like, we're being held to account like, oh, you've got to stop diversion out of state. Okay, we can stop the diversion out of state of what we grow in the licensed pot farms and then sell in the licensed pot shops. We can do things about that. We can do the seed to sale tracking. We can have the security cameras. We can have reporting. We can have people checking IDs at the sales counters to prevent looping. We can do that in the legal market, but the legal market can't do anything to go over to illegal Bob's farm and stop him from growing and packaging up in duffel bags and taking it to Chicago. That's not legal market's job. That's cops' job. So this is where it gets frustrating. It's because now that there's this big problem that needs to be solved that already existed and legalization didn't cause. He says, quote, or he wonders why there's no cap on licensees. He questioned why Oregon has failed to contain marijuana production by limiting the number of licenses it issues. According to the latest figures from the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, the agency that regulates marijuana, the state has licensed 892 marijuana producers. The agency is in the process of reviewing another 766 applications for producer licenses. Williams said, quote, "There is currently no cap. Why not?" End quote. All right, so can you see the handwriting on the wall, folks? I gave you the story from Washington, where MJ Biz Daily was wailing and moaning about Washington ounces getting down to $40 an ounce. Oh my God, we got to cap production. We got to cap production. You have to have a limit on how much production there is. Now here in Oregon, why don't we have a cap on licenses? The states, and I predicted this, that set their tax rates based on the price of marijuana need to keep the price of marijuana high. If you have unlimited production, the price of marijuana crashes. It's not the diversion that they're worried about. It's the price crash they don't like. That's what's really going on here, folks. The diversion has always happened. It will always happen. So long as Texas doesn't have legal marijuana, as Illinois doesn't have legal marijuana, as Virginia doesn't have legal marijuana, people in Oregon who aren't licensed will grow it illegally, package it, sell it, make a big profit. The only way you can kill the illegal growing market, the farmers in Southern Oregon and in the basements of Portland, Oregon, and all across the state, the only way those guys go out of business is if the price of marijuana that they can sell anywhere gets so low it's no longer worth doing. How many people has Billy Williams had to bust in the state of Oregon who had illegal stills of bourbon? None, because nobody can make a living with an illegal bourbon still anymore. Because here in Oregon, you can go buy Jack Daniels at the store. And you can in Virginia, and you can in Illinois, and you can in Texas, and everywhere else. There's no profit in being an illegal Jack Daniels producer. So really what you should be doing is increasing the production. You should be growing so much marijuana, it's sick. And then that marijuana causes a massive price crash all across the country. And then when the price is super low in New York and super, super, super low in Oregon, the profit is still there, but there's just not as much of it. I mean, there'll always be a black market. Hell, there's a black market in cigarettes. Why? Because you can get a pack of smokes in North Carolina for $4. You can sell it in Manhattan for $12. But that has to do with taxation and punitive measures and artificial restriction of supply. So I'm frustrated by this Billy Williams story. And I'm frustrated because I see what's happening here is that in the long game here, right? We legalize marijuana by saying, well, it's going to bring tax revenues and drug dealers don't check ID and we say all these great things about it. So they let legalization happen, or we make legalization happen, depending on how you frame it. And it's allowed to happen just enough so that all the problems with the prohibition that still exists get ascribed to the legalization. You said legalization would mean kids couldn't get weed, but we did these checks and 1 out of 5 kids can get weed. You said marijuana would have high tax revenues for the state, but now that the price has fallen so much, our tax revenues have gone down. You said we could legalize marijuana to prevent diversion out of state to other people, and it's still being diverted. See, legalization didn't work. I don't think we're going backwards. Unless we talk about production caps and license caps being backwards. And to me, it is a bit backwards because it's returning to the idea that cannabis should be artificially restricted. It's a freaking weed. The way this plant evolved, it should be in all of our backyards. Weed should be as ubiquitous here in Oregon as blackberry bushes. You should find that there should be cannabis growing on freeway medians. It's a weed. It evolved to be ubiquitous, and our species evolved with it quite well in that sense. But no, we start with the artificial restriction of prohibition, and now we're going to do the artificial restriction of overregulation. And folks, I don't like the way this is going. Hey, what can I do about it? I guess talk about it and educate some people about it, and maybe we can come to some better decisions. Anyway, that's all the time I got for today. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back on Tuesday. Remember, because Monday, Martin Luther King Day. We'll be back on Tuesday, and thanks for joining us. For everyone here at Delta 9 House and Studios, I'm Radical Russ. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
Follow MJ Agenda on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, and follow MJ Agenda Show on Twitter. Learn more at mjagenda.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you